Hello children. Today I'm going to be reading Jack and the Iron Lady. Once upon a time, not long ago, when people wore pyjamas and lived life slow, when laws were stern and justice stood, and people behaved like they ought to, good. But that's enough hip-hop. There was once a great land called Albion. It had been through some dark times, having to sell off Friday and Monday, and was left weak and dispirited, and vulnerable. A dark power, long overlooked, arose in the Shire of Lincoln, and seemingly out of nowhere, under a guise of maternal concern, the Iron Lady of Grantham formed an army and marched on the capital, Nodnall, annihilating everything in her path. Once swept into power through a combination of violence, dark magic, and selling the peasants their own houses, her true evil began to manifest. From the dark tower of Minas Wester, she wrought dark magic that stole the milk from the mouths of babes, silenced the rightful queen of the land, closed the borders with pale ghosts that attacked anyone with dark skin, stole money from the pockets of the poor and gave it to the lords and guilds, and fought a shameless war as a grab for popularity in the Falklands, the Far Islands. The dark power was not, however, without its challenges. Billy the Bard wrote satirical songs about the Iron Lady, but they were shit and had no effect. The sea elves of Brighton fomented revolt under King Tatchell, but were crushed by the elite military guard of Section 28. The travelling folk died in their thousands at the Battle of the Field of Beans. The Amazons of Greeningham died on the tips of three-pointed spears. Finally, the great army of the Northern Dwarves emerged from under Scar Hill and marched on the capital, only to be met by massed cavalry, routed, and sealed in their own minds forevermore. Even Dick Whittington couldn't stand against her power, and a mantle of darkness settled over the once green and pleasant land. All seemed hopeless when Jack of Brixton left his house, a VHS recorder heavy under his arm, fattened on video nasties and ready to sell at market. Jack's family were all poor as dirt, of course, and the VHS recorder was all they really had to their name. They'd been without work as long as anyone could remember, and all they could do was hide and hope nobody noticed that they were part of the great unwashed. Jack stole his way through the ghost town streets, lugging his heavy VHS recorder along, its power cord swaying amiably beneath it, and he stopped in the shelter of a Woolworths to catch his breath. "Hello, hello, hello. What do we have here?" Jack froze in fear. It was one of the Iron Lady's pig men, with two little piglets trailing in tow behind it. "I'm just taking my VHS recorder to sell," said Jack defiantly. "A video recorder, eh? A pricey piece of gear. Did you loot it during a riot?" Jack ignored the casual racism of the pig man and thrust out his chin. "It's ours. We earned it, back when Dad was working as a hansom cab driver." "Ah," said the pig man. "Unemployed, I see. Papers, please." Jack was left standing there some time, while the pig man went through his papers. "I see you have a fishing license," said the pig man. "That must mean you have a fishing pole. Which means you owe poll tax. That, in turn, means I'm taking your looted VHS recorder in payment." The pig man held out his hands to take it, grunting with glee. Jack had finally had enough. He trembled with rage and saw red. With the VHS gripped by its lead, he swung it like a great mace and beat the pig man to death, sending the piglets running and squealing for cover. When the moment passed, Jack wiped the black pudding and crackling from his eyes and saw what he'd done. He realised that there was no turning back now. He was a criminal, and his only chance was to go all the way, or to let himself be killed, and Jack wasn't about to let that happen. He set his sights on the tower of Minas Wester and began to march. All the way to the tower the pigmen circled warily, but everywhere the people began to rise, and they filed into the streets, following in Jack's bloody footsteps, and everywhere the pigmen fell back, until Jack finally reached the steps to the dark tower and began his ascent. Step by step by step, Jack ascended towards the Iron Lady's throne room, buoyed up by the cheers of the crowd below. Finally, breathless, dragging the battered VHS behind him, he pushed his way through the great doors to the final chamber, only to find the Iron Lady bristling with knives, waiting with her back to him. "Face me!" cried Jack, using the last of his energy to heft the battered recorder, ready to fight, panting, trying to build himself back up. "Oh, Jack, I think not." The Iron Lady turned her head slightly, offering but a glimpse of a mouthful of razors. "This, lady's not for turning. Ben, kill this idiot!" Jack felt a due sense of fear and trepidation as a gigantic shadow fell across him. Big Ben, the giant of Minas Wester, part man, part cabinet. He hefted his enormous criminal justice billhook and threatened to crush Jack with a single blow. "Oh," said Jack, drooping like an erection under a cold shower. "You absolute prick." He closed his eyes and waited for the billhook to fall, but it didn't. He opened his eye, just a slit, looking up. Ben was covering his mouth with his hand like a great slab of meat, stifling a giggle. "Prick means dong." Jack clung desperately to his momentary salvation. Don't you want to know how I infiltrated Minas Wester? I came via Nobbing Hill?" Ben looked confused for a moment. "But it's Notting Hill." "Oh wait, you made it sound like a dong." "Kill him, you blithering idiot!" the Iron Lady screamed, all knives and nail-on blackboard screeching. Jack remembered a wizard he'd seen once in the market, a tiny little man in a sparkly suit who couldn't resist making knob gags constantly. "I came here on the orders of the Lord Mayor, Dick Whittington." "Came? That means ejaculation." "Dick? That means dong." The giant couldn't handle the mirth. Enormous tears spilled down his cheeks as he shook with laughter and reeled around. Jack took the opportunity he was given. He had his breath and a little bit of energy back, and he took one final desperate swing with the VHS recorder, cracking the giant in the knee. And the giant fell. The giant fell on the Iron Lady. The giant crushed the Iron Lady under his body and was pierced by her knives. The witch and the giant were dead, but Jack was exhausted. Too exhausted to face the creeping grey ghosts that emerged from her body and would rule in her stead for another 7 years. The creature was defeated, ish. The land was free, ish. All Jack had to show with it for it was a dead giant and some scrap iron, which he traded in for just enough money to get some spaghetti hoops. And then Jack went home. With the Iron Lady dead, new evils began to stir in the far north. In the frozen lands of Edinburgh, the Blair Witch set its sights on Fair Nodnall and its people and began to rise. But that is a tale for another time. Good night, children. Sleep well.